My wife Steph and I have been together for about 2 years now. We met at college and we hit it off right away. Steph was orphaned when she was very young, so she'd been raised by her grandfather until she went off to school and met me. I didn't know much about her grandfather, other than that he was extremely protective of her, almost verging on paranoid. Still, he passed away before I got the chance to meet him, so I never really gave him much of a thought other than to comfort Steph. Now boys, until we found out that he owned something like 900 acres of forest. Steph was his only living descendant, so she was given the deed and a key to a house that she'd never seen before. What a 23-year-old girl was going to do with all of that, I didn't know. All I knew was that when she told me about her new land, I knew that we had to go and check it out. As we drove up, I asked her if she'd been to this house before. She said, "Listen, I didn't even know that this house existed, and I had no idea why Grandpa would keep it from me." It was pretty clear that she was still taking his death pretty hard. No wonder really. He'd basically raised her after all. The drive up into the mountains from our college took a couple of hours. The forest was thick with pine and oak trees growing close to the road. The further we got from civilization, the worse the roads got. Potholes, broken branches, and even grass had begun to sprout out in some places. Our plan was to stay the night at the house, but if that didn't pan out, we'd brought a tent as well. Our GPS had us turn down a gravel road. This road twisted around turns and rocky outcroppings. It was pretty clear that it was leading us down into a valley. After half an hour or so on this new road, we saw the house out in front of us. The house had clearly been abandoned for decades, and I had brought my camera with us, so I took a picture of it right as we stepped out of the car. And this is the picture. Steph was clearly disappointed. "Well, I guess it was too much to hope someone would be caring for it for all this time," she said. I stepped out of the car and began stretching. Stretching my legs after all that time in the car was really nice. Steph began walking up to the house to check it out. I warned her that the ground might be rotted and to be careful. I started walking around the house and took another picture, and this is the picture. I came back to the front of the house and walked through the front door. The inside was a mess, and everything seemed to be rotten. I was honestly surprised that it was still standing at all. I stuck my head back outside and my eye caught something. There was a tree growing just to the right of the house, and in that tree I saw 4 long, deep claw marks, a few months old at least. I raised my camera and took this picture. At that moment, I heard Steph shriek. I ran around the house and saw her standing in front of something rotten. When I took a closer look, I saw that it was a deer carcass. I told Steph that we were most definitely in a bear country, and then I took a picture of the deer. Only thing was, it looked like the deer had been cut open with a bunch of razor blades. Bears don't normally do that. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of the deer, but I'm warning you, it's not beautiful. The sun soon set after that. We took out our tents inside the house and found a nice flat spot to set it up. I busted out my gas grill and made us a couple of hamburgers. We were sitting in our camp chairs inside of the house and feeling pretty good by the time it got completely dark. Steph was looking at me pretty amazed. I asked her why she was so surprised. "It's just, I've never been camping before and it's different than what I imagined." She looked down at her phone. "Less cell service at least." I decided to ask some more about Steph's grandpa. "Why do you think he never told you about this place? And why didn't he ever take you camping?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. I went on for a while about how cool I thought that the property was, and plans for future parties with friends, bonfires, all of that. Clouds had begun rolling in, blocking the moonlight, so All the light was just from a little lantern I'd brought. Pretty soon, we hid inside the tent, zipped up the door, and were ready for bed. Now, Steph had already fallen asleep when it happened. All the sounds from outside, all the crickets and birds and owls, all stopped, in an instant actually. Laying in my sleeping bag inside the tent, the silence was deafening, and that was when I heard it. A distinct clicking noise echoed out from the forest. I lay in silence, trying to guess what kind of animal might make that sound. It was so loud that Steph actually woke up next to me and asked what it was. I told her I didn't know. Then I heard the clicking noise again, extremely close. So close it seemed like it might be right next to the house. I slipped out my sleeping bag, still inside the tent, and grabbed my camera. I walked up to the tent door and set it down as quietly as I could. I stuck out the camera into the darkness and took a picture. In the flash, I saw a hand reaching through the broken window of the house. It almost looked human, but it was deathly wide and had long claws extending from each finger. Through the window, I saw what looked like a human silhouette with two bright yellow eyes staring in toward us. Now I can't be sure, but it looked like there was blood around its mouth. I pulled the camera back in and zipped the tent door closed. This was the picture I took. Steph sat up. "What is it?" she asked. I moved next to her and covered her mouth with my hand. My heart was racing and I felt all the hairs on my body standing up. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. But then... silence. For a long moment I heard nothing. Then the clicking sound echoed out from where I knew the front door of the house was. Steph stared at me, her eyes clearly confused and afraid. She put her hand on mine and tried to pull it away, but I shook my head and didn't take it off. Silence again. I strained to hear, but nothing. For what must have been minutes, I sat with my hand on Steph's mouth. Then, I heard the clicking from just a few feet outside our tent door. I have no idea how it got so close without making any sound. I froze for a moment. Then, as quietly as I could, I reached into my pants laying on the ground and pulled out my car keys. I hit the unlock button twice and my car's horn began beeping loudly from where we parked it in front of the house. And then, silence again. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I heard the clicking from out where my car was parked in front of the house. The clicking echoed out a few more times, but each one was further and further away. After half an hour or so, the crickets started back up and the forest sounded alive again. Steph stared at me. "What did you see?" I told her to get dressed and be ready to run. We got dressed in the tent and I opened the door. We ran to where my car was, jumped in it and sped away. I didn't stop until we reached home. The next morning I went out to my car and saw this on the hood. Has anyone had experiences like this? I'll update the story if anything else happens.